Alright, in this lesson what we're going to do is take a Photoshop layout and use one of Photoshop's tools to slice it up and convert it to something we can use for a base as a website. Now, I'm going to preface this lesson by saying this isn't the ideal industrial standard for creating websites. This is more of a training wheels type of situation that can help you quickly and easily get a website up and running without knowing a great deal of code. And so Photoshop has a lot of really cool tools for this, but if you were to be a professional web designer, this isn't really the ideal way you want to do this. To do it the professional way would involve hours of code. I mean, depending on how fast you are, it can just basically take you having to type everything out from scratch in HTML and CSS. So since this is a Web 1 course, we're not going to do that, but in Web 2 we have a 3-video series in which we code out a layout from scratch. So without further delay, I will show you the tool we'll be using, and that is the Slice tool. Now, they changed the location of these tools from version to version in Photoshop, but in CS4 what I'm using is it's under this crop tool, which is the 5th tool down, and it is the slice tool. So it looks like a little X-Acto knife, and the hotkey is C, which should be pretty consistent from CS4 up to CS6. And what this does is it carves up your layout into different quadrants, and it's going to eventually convert this into an HTML table when we export it. And we will be doing a bit of coding before we actually try to manipulate any of this in Dreamweaver. So we will come back to this lesson, or maybe you might have already done the HTML and CSS lesson. But this video is only going to entail the Photoshop portion of this. So I'm going to go ahead and take this, and I'm going to start actually outside the boundaries of my layout and draw a rectangle here with the slice tool. And immediately you'll see it's broken up into 2 quadrants with these little brown borders and labels in the top left corner. So right now we have 2 main slices. And what I want to do is make it so each one of these is a clickable image. And this is something you need to think about as you're carving up your individual layouts, is think about, all right, what in this layout is going to be clickable, where do I want to have editable text, and so forth. And that should really determine how you do it. In this method, you don't really need to worry about slicing up every single thing. You could, but the ratio of the amount of work that goes into it to what you're going to get out is going to be quite small. So we're just going to worry mainly about links and editable text. So for me, all these headers I want to turn into images. Also, I want to slice up this main slideshow because I want to be able to swap that out. And then I'm going to have these main headers as their own slice, as well as this footer here. And then as well as these social media icons. So the first thing I'm going to do is actually right-click on this top quadrant while I still have the slice tool up and choose Divide Slice. So what this is going to do is I'm going to check the divide it vertically into, and then the number of slices. It's going to break it down into even slices. And what I'm going to do later is just adjust the borders to make it the way I want. So since I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different links, that's what I'm going to set for this number. So as soon as I hit 5, it breaks it up into these 5 units. So to adjust it, I'm just going to put my mouse on the border, and you'll notice it changes the appearance of my cursor. I'm going to drag that and then put this right about in the middle of those links. Okay, and before I go into labeling it, I'm just going to move on to the next part. So next I'm going to actually draw a slice here and just adjust it slightly. so that it encompasses my slide image here. And here you actually probably do want to keep it pretty precise, because later on if you want to swap this image out, you don't want to be including this extra background and all that. You just want it to be an image on its own. Okay, one other thing to think about is as you're slicing, you're going to notice all these borders show up, and you'll see that this kind of cuts into my layout. So you may actually need to do a little bit of adjusting of your layers. And that's actually what I'm going to do right now. I'm going to grab the Move tool, and I'm going to hold down Command so that I auto-select this layer, and you'll notice it selected it here. I'm just going to move that down slightly, as well as this layer. Okay. So now when I go back to my slice tool, I'm going to start in this corner and draw over to here. And you want to make sure that you're very precise when you do this, because if you're not, if you leave some extra pixels, it may actually do these little hidden extra slices. It's not doing it for mine because I was pretty precise, but if you're sloppy, you're going to have little hidden slices appear everywhere. And I guess that's not super bad, but it's generally better not to have that. So next I'm going to carve up this section here. So I'm going to start in this top left corner and drag this all the way to about here. And actually, I'd like to draw a little slice for each of these text areas. Now, again, there's no right or wrong way to do it. It just depends on what all you plan to have control over. So I could be as precise as cutting up every single one of these things, or I could just have this one giant slice. It all depends on what you want. So what I might do actually is do another divide. So I'm going to right click, divide slice. This time I only want 3. Hit OK. And I'll go ahead and just move this right up to the edge there. And same with this one. And what I'll do is switch back to my Move tool and move my content so that it fits nicely within those quadrants. Okay, next thing I'm going to do is divide it so that from here down is where we start having control over the text. So in this case, I'm actually going to want to select multiple slices. So the way I can do that is hold down Command while I'm in the Slice tool. And you'll notice when I clicked, this one has a brown border, everything else has blue borders. So that means this is the current active slice. So I'm going to hold down Command and Shift and select these ones as well so that they're all brown. And I'm going to right click, divide slice, only this time I'm going to uncheck vertically. I'm going to check horizontally and choose 2 because I want my slice to begin right there. So I'm going to hit OK. And next I've got my footer links and my social media. So what I'll do is probably start right here, carve up the footer area, and I guess where I end it doesn't matter too much. Maybe I'll set it to right here. And then for the social media, I'm just going to draw a rectangle over these, and I'm going to do a divide for this one. So right click, divide slice, and choose vertical 3. Okay. And then I'm going to go ahead and carve up a rectangle for this. And this time I actually want it to be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 because I don't want all this extra space to be included with this link. The other thing is I have to change it to match this top nav. So it needs to be home, the band, fans, and merch. So fans and merch. Okay. Alrighty. And actually this is what I'm talking about, where if things aren't aligned correctly, you're going to have these extra little slices. And so just to avoid having too many of these, what I'm going to do is move my social media up just so I can get rid of this little slice here. And I mean, it's not super important, but it'll just make things a little neater. So actually, what am I going to do? Maybe move these up. There we go. And that, yeah, that eliminates that extra slice there. Or is it? It's kind of hard to tell. Anyway, I'm not going to spend too much time on that. But bring those down. Okay, so I'm going to go back to dividing this one. So I need to hold down Command and click on it so that this is selected. Right click, divide slices, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So switch that back to 5, hit OK, and then drag these evenly between the links. Okay, so that is it for the slicing portion. Now what I want to do is make these things clickable. I also want to give everything a name because what's going to happen is I'm going to export it and it's going to slice these all up into individual JPEGs or GIFs. And if I don't have names for all those, it's going to be a little bit confusing in the end. So to label them, I'm going to hold down Command, click on it so that it's selected, right click and choose Edit Slice Options. So for this one, I'm just going to call this main logo. And the URL, this is going to be the name it gives to the image. So we want something a little bit shorter, no caps, no spaces. So I'm just going to call this logo. Now, if I want to, actually, no, I'm sorry. The URL is actually what it's going to link to when we click on it. So this top one should be more simplified. So this one I'm just going to call logo. This, when I click on this, it's going to take me to a particular website. So since it's basically just going to take us to the home page, later on we'll talk about the home page. The name for that is always going to be index.html. That always gets pulled in as the default web page. So just go ahead and put index.html for this one. Target is how it opens the page. So does it open it in a new tab or a new window or a different frame or the same window? That's how you control it here. And there's actually a little bit of code in there, but so for now we're not going to worry about that. And the alt tag is for search engine optimization and accessibility purposes. And what that means is when Google is indexing your website, as in when they have their bots go out and they're looking at all the sites, they're indexing your site based on the keywords that you're using in the site. And Google's bots can't actually read images. So for example, this will be a JPEG, and the bot actually can't look at this image and see that it says the strokes. It just doesn't do that. So we actually have to include a little bit of alt text, which is for the bots to be able to read and know how to better place your website in the search index. So for this one, I'm just going to say the strokes logo. And there's no real naming conventions that you have to have here, so it's fine to leave it that way. So I'm going to hit OK, and I'm going to do the same for this one. Edit slice option. This one I'll just say top-nav-home. And this one also is going to take us to index.html. Alt text, I'm going to say home nav. Hit OK. This one I'll say nav band. This one we'll have it go to band.html because later on, hypothetically, we'll have a page called band.html that when you click on that, it'll take you to a separate HTML document. So I'm just going to call this band nav. All right. Edit slice options. Call this fans or nav, or was I doing nav first? Nav-fans. This one will take us to fans.html and fans nav. Now again, there's no exact way you have to name these, but typically if you're labeling any sort of file that's going to be used in your website, you want to typically keep it all lowercase and don't have spaces or special characters like exclamation marks or slashes or question marks. You usually only want to have dashes or underscores and lowercase letters and numbers. So merch, oops, edit slice, and I'm going to call this nav-merch. And then go to merch.html, merch nav. And this one, since this is all just black, just to save some memory so that it doesn't actually have to load an image here, I'm going to go and do another option here. So I'm going to hold Command, click, edit slice option, and for slice type, instead of image, I can choose no image. And down here, it's going to say slice background type. I'm going to say black. So it's just going to load a black color here, and it's not going to be image based. All right, here I'm going to hold Command, click, right click, edit. This one I'll call slide. Here we don't actually want it to click anywhere necessarily, but we could have it go to the band as well, but it's up to you. So we'll say band.html. Tag, I'm just going to have it say main image slideshow. Hit OK. For now, I'm just going to have this remain an image. So edit. I'll just call this slide info. We'll have that link to band.html as well. And ideally, if you're having a whole bunch of text as an image, you'll want to have all that text in your nav. So for example, I would have this say tour in Europe, first show in Berlin, and then I could include all that lorem ipsum, but I don't have to. And then I could just say check out the latest pics. Hit OK. All right, next I'm going to right click, edit. I'm going to call this one drummer. It's not going to link anywhere. And I'll call this, for the text we're going to type drummer. This one, guitarist. Guitarist. Singer. And singer. Okay, here this is going to be a bit more of a tricky process. What we're going to do is actually make this into a background image instead of being an actual image that takes up space. And again, this gets a little bit into code, and so I may include this in a later lesson. But if you want this to be a background image and not have this text here so that we can actually throw in our own text, what you'll want to do is actually highlight all this copy, hit Command C, and for this one I'm going to switch back to the slice tool, click here, right click, edit slice options. This one I'm going to do as no image. I'm going to paste that in the cell. And again, we'll have to get into more lesson, or another lesson. For now, I'm going to choose no background type. So I'm going to hit OK. I'm going to do the same thing here. Edit slice option. Since this is the same text, go ahead and paste the same thing. Slice background type, say none again. One more time, edit slice option. Oops, I'm going to choose no image, paste. And we could, I guess, make it black if we wanted. Because, whoops, by default, it's going to make it all white. But then again, our text is going to be black, so it might not show up. So, for now, let's just keep it none. Hit OK. All right, these ones, I'm going to do the same thing as the top nav. So, home. And actually, I want this to be distinguished from the other home image. So I'll just say home footer. That's going to go to index.html. Excuse me. Call this home footer. Edit. Band. Footer. Sorry, I can't type. And then URL will be band.html. Band. Footer. Oops. I have to say fans-footer. Have that go to fans.html. I didn't give that an alt, sorry. And merch-footer. Merch.html. Merch footer. And for this one, I want this just to be editable text. Actually, there we go. So I'm going to right-click, edit. This one is going to be no text, and I actually want it to have the same text as what I have here. So the strokes, copy, right, 2012, site, designed by Jonathan Early. Okay. And okay, and then we have these last ones. So call this one Facebook. Actually, I'll make it social-Facebook. And the reason I put this first is because these images are all going to be listed alphabetically in my folder. So since they're all the same type, I usually want to put the type name first and then get more specific as I go to the right. This one, we're actually going to want it to go to facebook.com. And anytime you're linking to a site on another server, you want to have http://. And this is something I explain a bit more in my other coding lessons, but basically if you're looking for something locally, as in if you have all of your images and your web pages all in the same folder, you don't have to type this HTTP. But if I'm ever going to another website server like Google or Facebook or Yahoo, I need to have this http://. So for this one, I'm just going to have it go to facebook.com. And anytime I am going to another site, I typically want to open that up in a new tab. So the way that we do that is type _blank. I'm going to have that for the other three as well. In this one, I'm going to have it say Facebook link. Okay. Same deal here. Social-Twitter. Have that go to http://twitter.com. Make that blank. Have that say Twitter link. One more time. Social-Vimeo. URL will be http://vimeo.com. And Vimeo is kind of like the equivalent to YouTube, but way less videos, and all those videos tend to be much higher quality. So it's kind of like the difference between Walmart and IKEA. You're not going to find everything at IKEA, but the things you do find are going to be a bit more designer and a bit classier. So under target, we're going to put blank, alt text, Vimeo link. All right, now I'm not going to worry about all these other filler images. So once we do that, we've labeled all of our slices, given them links, all that good stuff. The way we export this is we go to File, Save for Web and Devices, not Save As. Save for Web and Devices. And that will take you to this screen, which basically at this stage what it lets you do is you can click on each individual slice and you can choose what format it's exported as. So I clicked here, I can make it a GIF, a JPEG, a PNG, or a WBMP, which I have never used. So JPEG is going to be just fine. And that's pretty much all we have to do at this stage for now. So I'm going to hit save. And I need to tell it where I want to export all of these images to. So you can do it wherever you want, whether it's on a thumb drive or if you have a special folder. Mine is under, actually I have my own folder here. I'm going to do it under slicing, and I'm going to have it say slices. Save it in there. Now under here, the options you want to set are HTML and images. You don't want just images. Settings, we'll just put on XHTML, and slices, we want all slices. So that's referring to all of these, whether they're selected or not. Hit save. And it's thinking. It's done. I'm going to go to my Finder. Here's the folder it's at, slicing, slices, and look, I've got an HTML page now. And it created a folder called images, and as you'll see, these are all the different slices that made up that layout. So here's that slideshow image, and here's the little social media icons, all that good stuff. And the ones that we've labeled, you'll notice they have names on them. The rest of them just got generic names like base layout 07, but those are kind of more generic. In fact, those could probably just be black. We could do without these images. So I'm going to go open up this HTML file, and now here it is on Google. Now you'll see here, these are the ones that we put the text in and told it not to create an image for. And what we're going to have to do is a little bit of coding to style this so that it doesn't look like that. But the advantage here is that this is all highlightable, editable text now. We just have to go through a few steps to change the background image, change the color of the font, and change the font itself. But that is another lesson. But as you'll notice, my cursor turns into a pointer finger, meaning that these things are clickable. So when I click on this right here, we haven't created this page, but you'll notice it takes us to merge.html, which is where we programmed it to go to. So yeah, that's mainly it. Now, Photoshop has generated all this code for us. And again, you'll have to have gone through a coding lesson to really understand what all this is doing. But I'll just point out, IMG is for placing images on the web, and here SRC is the source. It's looking for the name of that image. So it's under the folder images, and the name of the image is nav.band.jpg. Here it's telling the height and width and all that stuff, and here is that alt text that we programmed in there. So that's what it was doing with all those steps that we did in Photoshop. And here you can see it's the actual text that you can edit. All right, that's all for now.